Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Sulphur. So for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel. It's where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. It's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons that you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time. And broadly speaking, I'd agree and say as a rule, 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes, and then you can make up your mind on your own. Well, this snuck up on me, just came out of nowhere. And, you know, I'm a bit funny about cozy games, but something about this looked like maybe it was a bit hardcore under the lid, so I thought I'd take a peek. And goodness me, that's exactly how I would explain it. This game is brutal. So first thing out of the gate, if you think that you're in for some cutesy, cuddly, cozy experience, wrong. That's not what this is. Like, mechanically, we'll get into it, is very much a rogue-like, which are becoming almost a dying breed in the modern wave of meta-progression roguelites with a T. In fact, if you've only played, roguelites in recent years, you may not even realize that they are sort of a derivative form. Well, I don't even mean that, not disparagingly. If they're popular, whatever, but this is definitely a roguelike in the most brutal fashion. Again, a touchstone for someone outside the genre would be things like Tarkov, that sort of stuff. Much more permanency. When you die in this game, you lose everything and you have to start again. And it is hard, it is brutal, it's very difficult to eke out an advantage. The gunplay is all very tight, the controls, they feel very deliberate. It's quite refreshing, actually. But at the same time, nature of the beast, even myself, someone who really enjoys a roguelike, it occurs to me it's been a while since I've played such a kind of brutally hardcore kind of leany experience. So when you've got this cool jacked revolver, but you can only fire it so fast because that's just mechanically how its stat sheet works, and there's just too many enemies coming down that hallway and you're staring death in the face, it's a tough pill to swallow to just wipe and lose everything and go back to the start. But my goodness, if I don't start up again, I'll tell you what. So this might be music to some people's ears, because my moment of introspection was how soft roguelites have made me, even for someone who's aware of the change. Just a couple of years of absorbing them and expecting after every run you get +2 charisma for the rest of your account forever. It's so good to have this come back. But it will be interesting, like I said, if it finds its audience. Because again, this aesthetic, the way it's presenting, I feel like it might bring in the exact opposite of who maybe wants to play this game. The cutesy aesthetic is wild because this reminds me of, and look, I don't know if there's a modern equivalent, if I'm just dating myself as an old bloke, but Happy Tree Friends. It was sort of a South Park kind of play on the same thing, cutesy little critters, horribly, disgustingly violent. And this game kind of leverages that. All the enemies, as you can probably see in the footage, are very, very cute, but also you have a bit of a look at it. I don't know how else to describe it because I don't think I've really seen it in many other things. Like, consider Gore. I can't believe I'm Gore Theory with Scarlet 101. If you're playing a more hardcore gory game, blowing limbs off or heads or whatever, that's about as much as it gets. Insta-gib, bits and pieces and guts and blood, right? Maybe some entrails lying around. So as best as I can try and describe it from one gamer to another, the surface area, the floor space with which one of these dudes, even their face takes up, is quite large. It's not as simple as shoot someone in their head and their head disappears. It's more like in that moment when you shoot the dude in their head, you see the bullet hole go through the exact pinpoint part of their head, whether it was their cheek or below their eye or whatever, and then just gore and guts, and then they scream, and then they have this weird, I don't know what else to call it. There is this sort of, it's almost like a reverse iframe for the enemy. If you just keep pounding bullets with a fast-firing gun into a dude you've already killed, there is this sort of juggle dance that you can kind of accidentally do, a bit like Max Payne, but in Embuggerance. So if there are, let's say, 4 dudes coming down the corridor and you just mag dump, chances are the first bloke's going to die and he's going to eat all your bullets as a little bullet shield for them, and you're going to feel like an arsehole when you stop firing, you go to reload, he falls down and the other 3 blokes are still coming along. So it's doing some really unusual, interesting stuff with the way that, you telegraph an interface with the actual enemy models. But yeah, it's gross, the way that you take chunks out of their ear and Oh my god. So yeah, there's got to be an award for that. One of the cutest, most wholesome looking games, and yet got the most visceral reaction from me probably of anything this year. On top of that, you loot bits and pieces of, you know, brains and eyes, and as best as I can understand, unless they're crafting mats, you do get a pretty penny for them, so you sell them back to the vendors because why not? The setup is pretty basic. You're like a padre from a village that's been burnt to the ground, chasing this witch into a cave. You crash your car, and then off you go fighting through goblins trying to catch up to the witch for, I don't know, retribution, resolution. It doesn't matter. It's a MacGuffin adjacent carrot on a string just to keep you going. Maybe if you think of like something like Barony, if you like Barony, there's a good chance you will like this. There's definitely way less loot, at least in the way of weapons and that sort of stuff, so less kind of trash. And don't get me wrong, I really like Barony, and I only really played it for the first time this year, and I put many, many hours into it. But exactly that, it's built around, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's built around a kind of trash loot system. There's an identify system, but the whole idea is it's closer to something like a Diablo ARPG in that you'll pick up 100 bits of gear and only one of them maybe is useful. So that's one end of the scale, which a lot of people are used to when it comes to like looter shooters. You know, Borderlands was the really big one. This is the other end of the scale. This is way tighter about what it gives you. And what you can buy is very expensive. So getting ahead in this game is difficult. And I can't really tell you the longer tail on where it goes, but a run starts with you sort of dying, respawning in this kind of undead parallel of your old church. You get a starter gun, no money, no nothing, that's it. There are some shops at the beginning that shuffle up sort of inventory so you can buy some rudimentary stuff, but broadly speaking, that hub's not really for you, dear level 0, I just died entry-level player. And what you really want to do to sort of eke ahead is just play with the starting pistol, fight through until I believe it's stage 4, which even getting that far was a bloody nightmare while you're trying to figure out how this game wants to play. I'm not complaining. In fact, I'm sort of embracing in a sort of healthy, masochistic frustration of wanting to, you know, actually become good at a game and learn it and interface with it, as opposed to sort of autopiling through it a little bit more casual. But once you get to that sort of 4th stage, you can recharge this amulet thing that you've got. It's just, essentially it's like a town portal, and the only way to charge it is at these fountains. And at the moment, that sort of shorter loop seems to be the best way to get ahead. You do your run, you struggle all the way through to the 4th level, you fill up the amulet, and then you town portal back to the beginning, and at least now you have a bit of permanency. At least until you die. You can sell some stuff, sell some bits and pieces of goblin leather, whatever. And then that's when you get into the kind of RPG loot system. There's all sorts of wild, weird, you know, you start wearing your father's frock from the church as armor, but you've got feet slots and, you know, helmets and that sort of thing, and everything gets damaged and needs repair. The guns are particularly interesting. They're such a weird thing to hold up against, like the cutesy creatures, like you're kind of fighting medieval creatures in a cave, but you're bringing like 50 cal machine guns and sniper rifles and all sorts of these like kind of real world guns against dudes with spears. It's very strange, but it works. It works incredibly well. But as you use a gun, the gun itself is the RPG mechanic. That's the progression. And once it hits levels, it unlocks like equipment slots. So even your starting pistol, you can get quite a bit of value out of it once you start getting a few kills. And even then, getting it to level up once or twice is a bit of a job. So getting ahead is tough, but it feels earned in this world of meta progression roguelites. Again, nothing wrong with those, but I like the idea of balancing the equation with something tougher like this. And so there's sort of magic spells and oils and all sorts of odd stuff that you can slot into your gun. I've had scenarios where every time I fired and it would ricochet the bullet. I've had other ones, I got like a silencer, but you know, there's sort of like elemental spells and that, so it's just throwing everything at the wall and it seems to work quite well. When you do die, you do have like a church donation box where you get an amount of money, and I can only assume it's some fraction of the total loot you were carrying, right? So it's not exactly a lot of money, a couple hundred coins perhaps, And you can put that in your kind of world stash before you leave as well. So there is a sort of, at a very low level, you could eke out a bit of progression just by death grinding, if you want to call it that. Almost like hatchet running, I guess. But even all that said, get good is definitely part of the equation here. Even if you manage to save up $1,000 to buy a gun or a spell or something like that, and then you die on level 2, it's gone, you know, so whoop-de-woo. I do wonder how hard it will snowball later on. Again, I'm still very much, 2 hours is only so much while you're still learning the ropes. But I do wonder if you get to a point where you start making money hand over fist and it becomes kind of a bit too much of a one-to-one of real life and wealth management. So I feel like you potentially have the ability as the game goes on to just kind of shrug off dying and losing a kit because you're probably bringing back that much money from the runs you're in. But who knows? That's kind of a later problem. For now, this is really cool. A breath of fresh air in that it's such a return to form and roots of the genre. Doing some weird stuff that on paper that doesn't make sense. Fighting goblins with spears by shooting them with a bloody automatic rifle. But it all works. And it's a testament to the devs. Very cool, very clever, very fun. Anyway, team, I don't want to waffle. Those are my thoughts. Check it out. Might just leave it there for the time being and I'll catch you guys on the next one.